modernization, enabling standardization to increase productivity. Let me first invite our moderator, Mr. Rajkiran Kanagla. He's the Senior Vice President and Group Head from Emerging Business Unit, Strategy and Business Development from TCI Group. And for the panelists, we have Mr. R.K. Narayan. He's the COO All Cargo Logistics. Mr. Kamal Kishore Kumawat, he's the co-founder and director from Edjustify. And Mr. Harsh Vaidya, he's the CEO from WhereIQ. I would request all the delegates to keep posting their questions in the chat box, and the panel will address few selected questions at the end of the session. Over to you, Mr. Kanagla.
Thanks a lot, and good afternoon, everybody. And thanks to the panel for being there. So the topic is, I'll just spell out the topic again. It's warehouse infrastructure modernization. How do you enable standardization to increase productivity? To set the context, we all know that today warehousing is not standardized. So that's not a big rocket science, it's given. We have a large unorganized play in this. We also have a very good organized play coming in because of the advent of e-commerce, retail, and also the startups jumping into the fray. The overall ecosystem of building a box has definitely enhanced, especially since the global supply chains are coming into India. Our sheer knowledge of warehousing as a not just a go down, but a warehousing as an intelligent piece in the entire supply chain, which will ensure that the fulfillment happens to the consumer and the customer, is something which we are seeing right in front of our eyes. So with this context, what I'd like to do is that sort of open up not only the panel discussion, but a debate with Mr. Narayan to start, and then have Kamal and Harsh to speak. Harsh and Kamal will speak more on the way they see as startups, young entrepreneurs trying to bring in the technology piece. Mr. Narayan is a veteran. He's got vast experience. So he's going to tell us how they see this business opening up. So with that, Mr. Narayan, the first question goes to you. And it's something where we would like to know, do you see investments coming in? A lot of reports, all the big infrastructure players are saying big investments are coming in, dollars are flowing in. Do you see it is coming? Next would be who's investing. So two questions to start off. So over to you, Mr. Narayan. The floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you, Raj. So, sorry, the first question was who's investing? No, that was the second question. The first question, I guess, was what kind of investments are happening, is it?
Right, absolutely.
Yeah, so that, yes, I think from an investor perspective, the logistics and warehousing and industrial park, they are basically another real estate asset class. So most of the investors, the institutional investors that you see, they're all real estate investors, whether global or domestic. So, the other asset class in India where a lot of investments in the past have already happened and big, dollars have already come in. They are in the commercial office asset, in the retail as in shopping malls, and big time in residential also over a period of time. The one asset class I would say which was missing until 2 or 3 years back, leaving aside one major player which entered about 10 years back, but otherwise more so in the recent time, the whole logistics and industrial parks have opened up. Obviously, one of the main reasons was with the GST coming in and there being a need of more consolidated, larger parks, etc., those things came into being. So therefore, you've started seeing in the last 4 or 5 years, a lot of global real estate investments happening. Now, much of this actually, still is largely from the offshore investors. You can put them in combination of one who are pure play investors, and therefore they partner with a local developer to do a joint venture or something and pick up assets from there. And then there are some which are developer also and also raise third-party capital. So this is a combination of these things which are happening. But yes, largely the investment is still the big investment is still coming from the institutional investors. Having said that, that would perhaps still represent 30 to 40 or maybe 45% of the total investment that's happening in the Indian warehousing market. You still have the traditional local developers, local businesses, across various parts of the country, whether it's the major cities or whether it's the smaller cities, but anyone who has access to a large land parcel, they are also investors. So they are also basically putting in their equity money to develop these warehouses. You will see more and more of these coming in. Now, second, in terms of who are the investors, you can, right now there are probably a handful, maybe 7, 8 global investors, and then a lot of family offices here. So amongst global real estate investors, you will see the same names which are already present big time in the Indian real estate market. Be it Blackstone of the world, or be it ESR logos, etc., etc. They're all investors. Some of them are investors and developer, Morgan Stanley, Proprium, many of them. But having said that, there are many who are still looking to invest. Of course, many of them, they like to invest in already developed property. There is not so much of stock of developed property which is available for these investors to acquire. So probably you will see them coming little down the line because they would like to invest, multi-hundred of millions of dollars. And probably they will watch when the stock increases to that account, then you will see more and more investors coming in. Currently, the size of investment that's happening is hardly anything. So there is more opportunity to come, and you will continue to see, at least for the next 4 or 5 years, the flow of capital coming in. The nature of this will keep on changing, from investors who are traditionally opportunistic investors, which come and do development, etc., from investors who would want to buy only rent-generating investors. So you will continue to see interest. I think it is our ability to get the land, develop them, fulfill the tenants' requirements. So how much we can build. There are challenges, of course. So amount of volume that should happen, that's not happening. But things are easing out. It will start happening slowly and slowly. So I think that answers the second question also as to who are investors. But domestic capital also is playing a role. One in the form of equity, as I said, from local developers or high net worth individuals. And also banking now is coming, big time into securitized loan and also coming into the construction finance. So a combination of all these things.
Thanks, Mr. Naren. I'd like to put in a spot, is all cargo investing? Because a lot of investors would like to know.
Yes, all cargo is investing. We are, in fact, we are already 5-6 million up, in a short span of time over the last 3-4 years. You can count us as one of the top players in the Indian market. And yes, we continue to expand our reach. We do have an institutional partner also with us. So newer cities, newer markets, second warehouse, third warehouse in larger cities, those we continue to do.
Thanks. Thanks a lot. I think you have set the context with respect to investment. I'll now come to Harsh. Harsh, you would have the tag and the crown of a startup. That's a crown we all want to wear. You will not allow established players to wear that so easily. You are creating your own space. So what's the impact of startups in warehousing? We have heard in last mile, we have heard in logistics, food delivery is on a strong. But what do you think in warehousing? We're not hearing much. So that's the first question for you. So over to you, Harsh.
Great. So thanks a lot, Raj, and everyone for the opportunity. I'll just give a quick introduction about WareIQ as an organization for everyone on the webinar, and then I'll address your question. So we are an e-commerce fulfillment company that allows online brands in India to offer same day and next day delivery. The way our model works is that we have a tech platform which connects to a nationwide network of fulfillment centers and last mile couriers, and we drive this whole orchestration layer to offer fast shipping services in a pay-as-you-go model. So we were part of Y Combinator last year, and we've been working with about 200 different brands in the retail and the online space across the spectrum. So to address your question, I think it's a very important one, that why warehousing is at the center of the conversation now, which it wasn't as as Mr. R.K. Nayan mentioned few years back. So the bigger problem statement over here is that the e-commerce has become mainstream, and with e-commerce becoming mainstream, what has happened is the customer expectation of getting the parcel delivered to them the next day or in 48 hours has increased significantly. So if you are an online brand and you are offering shipping in say 5 or 6 days, customers will not buy from you, they'll buy elsewhere. So Amazon Prime is already offering next day delivery and 48 hours delivery. So how do you offer fast shipping services in a consistent level and also make the unit economics work? There is only fundamentally one way. You have to get inventory closer to customer, which makes the entire distribution to be moving away from the traditional centralized distribution model to a distributed fulfillment model. And that's where warehousing becomes very, very important. And various format of warehousing becomes very important. So the first part is, say you can be an online brand headquartered in NCR and you start your business from NCR shipping everywhere. Soon enough, as you hit scale, you will realize that demand is coming in from all the demand centers, coming from South, East, Central India, and all these different packets. And you cannot offer consistent service level. So you'll have to go and set up new fulfillment nodes. And that's where warehousing infrastructure becomes so core to the entire operations of it. And then even the warehousing operations is very different in e-commerce as compared to the traditional e-commerce, which is more of a box level operation, while e-commerce is a unit level operations. The failure points, the sophistication is very high, which makes it very imperative for tech players like us to step in and ensure that the entire SLAs are met and the entire problem statement of making a supply chain geared for speed at the forefront of it. So yeah, that's my take on why warehousing is so important right now in the current context where digital is spiking so quickly.
Thanks, Harsh. So if I have to understand, you are saying you are a digital platform, you are not owning any assets, right?
So we work with different asset players. As a company, we don't own the assets, but from an operations perspective, we own the SLAs. So in different assets that we work with, we ensure that the SLAs are being complied. So it is our team on the ground running the operations, and it is our own tech on which the entire operation is being executed on.
Sure, Harsh, understand that. So I'm just trying to don the hat of a conventional player who puts in his hard-earned money to create warehouses, who owns the assets and then tries to deliver a solution to a customer. Here you come and you are saying, I have a digital play and I will deliver the SLAs, but no assets. So Mr. Arkanan, I think you can start thinking. He says no assets. We are saying we'll invest in assets and create the asset class, whether it is through an investor or as a corporate. So we'll come back to you on that. I'm just giving you a heads up to counter Harsh. And with this, I'll come to Kamal. So Kamal, you are also going to, you are a startup, you are also on the tech space, but I want you to answer a question on shared warehousing. What do you think is the role of shared warehousing? In India, it's been debated a lot, primarily because clients don't want to share information with each other. So how will you go about in that? And that's something which we believe is difficult, but do you see that play happening in the marketplace? Shared warehousing, over to you.
Surely, thank you, Raj. First of all, I would give a brief about Agistify and will walk you through the question which you have asked me. So about Agistify, we were trying to solve the same problem which we are discussing today about bringing visibility in the warehousing ecosystem and become a single decision support system or act as a warehousing procurement team of all the companies. In last 4 years, we have created a rating model of warehouses based on 200 plus parameters, and we have verified over 55,000 plus warehouses across India. Using this, we have created India's largest plug-and-play warehousing and fulfillment network. And we are helping D2C brands, legacy businesses, and e-commerce sellers provide Amazon and Flipkart like next day delivery service, which is what WhereIQ is also doing. So in last 4 years, first we were trying to bring a common platform where we know about what sort of infrastructure we already have and how players are using those infrastructure. Now we are building on that using our technology layer. And you rightly said that if we talk about shared warehousing, in the last 1 decade, market has evolved a lot because of e-commerce growth. A decade ago, it was difficult to talk about shared warehousing. Even today, businesses work with distributors and CNF agents. Brands do not want to share their operational partners or customer network with other brands. This used to be a trade secret, and that was the reason why players like P&G, ITC, HUL, Asian Paints were ahead of the market. But now digitization and access to the internet have changed the game. Digital distributors are emerging like Udaan, Grofers, Shopkirana, and the end consumers have channels to know about products across tier 2, tier 3 cities. Everyone knows about warehousing cost, and it's a dead capital for the company, which if saved directly improves the profit margins. Shared warehousing helps in reducing the overall cost structure. For fulfilling customers' needs across India, companies need to have a wider presence, and that requires having small warehousing space across India, and that could be easily achieved with shared warehousing. 95% of our customers want shared warehousing across India. All their concern is about safety, security of their inventory, and SLAs to be maintained. As e-commerce scales up, people would start ordering things more frequently. To accommodate such needs, shared warehousing is the only way forward. And we have started seeing this, like the current D2C rise, and even traditional players. ITC have opened up their own e-commerce portal, and they are running their own dark stores to reach out to customers directly. And smaller brands like Marico, Godrej Consumers, and these people don't have volume similar to ITCs of the world, but if they get accommodated in shared warehousing, they can also have similar lines to directly reach to their consumers. So, yeah.
Sure. Thanks, Kamal. So you're bringing in the concept that shared warehousing is there to stay. And since we are going into more of a fulfillment center model, and it is a variable model, people would like to coexist and get the customer serviced. Now, I'm a bit confused. The startup says no assets, but digital platform. They get a great valuation, as we have seen in Zomato. The established players put blood and sweat to create assets, infrastructure. All Cargo is a pioneer, Mr. Narayan. There are so many things they have created. And how do you counter these digital startups who say we will be in the cloud, and they're really in the cloud with the monies flowing in, while you are on the ground creating infrastructure? Who wins the race?
I don't think so. We have to look at who wins the race. There is no such thing as, I think the goalpost or the destination is still many decades ahead, and we are walking in, or maybe years ahead. So we have to walk in. The core infrastructure need will always be there, right? And the core infrastructure asset will always be there. We are a cash flow business, and we are in a pure play rental business. We provide world-class infrastructure, and the need and the demand from the marquee clients are only increasing. You'll be surprised to know, while we may be on one side talking about smaller warehouses spread across various parts of a city, but the hubs requirements will always remain, and the requirement of those hub or the distribution center or the facilitation center, the size is only increasing from an average size, which could have been, and I'm talking more about an organized place like us, the average size, which were probably in the 100 to 150,000 square feet. That average size is increasing to 300,000, 400,000 square foot. The biggest size that we say a couple of years back we might have had as 400,000 square feet. That's going to 900,000 square feet, because both e-commerce players as well as third-party logistics companies, they need bigger and bigger warehouse. They do a whole lot of automation inside, for quick in and out, or sorting or whatever. They make bigger investments than what the warehouse developer makes sometimes in some of the warehouses, and they're all signing up for longer tenures, 10, 15. In one case, we have even signed up a 25-year lease. So I think the core infrastructure need, that's not going to go away. Yes, how the entire value chain from the factory or from wherever it is produced, that good is produced, whether it's by a small vendor in some part of the country or the large manufacturers, of consumer goods or any other goods, white goods, etc., from there until the customer point, how it reaches. I think always new points in the value chain, is opening up, and that's where the gentleman that we have here on the call, my co-panelists, you will always find some space where the value addition can happen and where there is a new room opening up. What historically there was no scope in that segment because you had traditional, from factory to warehouse and from warehouse moving on to consumer end. I think this whole distribution side is changing. What you had mainly distribution as retail and through the shopping malls. Now that itself is changing. So as the whole dynamics of purchase keeps changing, I'm sure new and new avenues will keep coming, and that's where a whole lot of startups. So I don't think so there is anything like competing with them. These are all supplementing ultimately to provide value to the end customer. And from the main company which is dealing with that particular goods, for them to overall reduce the supply chain cost. So the volumes keeps increasing. By the way, the market is still growing and significantly growing. We are talking of e-commerce penetration still very low in single digits. So all those rooms will keep happening. I think from a market perspective to reach a maturity stage, that's still. I mean, what to talk of maturity? For example, one would have thought that the US market, for example, or any of those Western European market are already advanced. You will be surprised to know that what amount of infrastructure that gets created in the Indian market in the top 8 cities, roughly 30 to 35 million square feet, let's say, was the FY21 data in the top markets for grade A warehouses. The US in the recent times is doing 4 times or 3.5 to 4 times of that in 1 quarter. So the infrastructure creation, despite that being, let's say, far advanced in tech or far advanced in so many other solutions, are still having that core infrastructure requirement. So I don't think so. This is the need of the asset is going away anywhere, and it's being supported by increased allocation of the capital also amongst the real estate funds, which is happening. I mean, this sector is seeing increased interest and increased capital allocation. So I think there's a harmonious living, and each finding different ways of providing the entire solution in the value chain, whether for the producers or for the consumers.
Thanks a lot, Mr. Narayan. Wonderful points. I'll bring back the entire panel to the topic. We have set the context. We have had a debate between the startup ecosystem to the conventional. We have identified the need for investment and who's investing. And obviously, there's a huge gap. The topic says, how do you enable standardization through the modernization of infrastructure? That is the warehousing piece. So let us dwell more on the topic that combined, which is the overall ecosystem of warehousing, as we say, the asset class creators. Then there is the user, who is the client, who is actually holding the inventory. They are the most important player. And ultimately, you are servicing combined a larger ecosystem, which is the consumer. So the client who has the goods, the warehousing piece where you all three come in, we are trying to service the consumer. So where does the word standardization fit in? We know it's not there. We have all shapes and sizes of warehousing, various nomenclature used. So Harsh, let's address the topic for everyone. How do you get standardization? So I would request this question will go to all three. So somebody could answer on the policy level, that what government needs to do. Somebody could answer on the industry level, and somebody could also answer on the technology side. So what would be the enablers for standardization? So over to you, Harsh, then Kamal, and then back to Mr. Narayan. Same question. We address the topic now. We have 15 to 20 minutes with us. Let's come back to the topic now that the context is set. Over to you, Harsh.
Yeah, sure, Raj. So thanks for that. So one is what is going to define the standardization? I think it is the service levels which are required by the e-commerce platforms are going to define the standardization, because the players who are not able to meet those service levels will eventually go out of the market. And those service levels are becoming very, very stringent in terms of the processing speed that you're expected to do in a day, so that you are able to move the parcel out, dispatch it on the same day. That requires ability, the management system, it is tech and asset, both of them working in conjunction, just not one piece and the other piece does not function. It has to work everything in conjunction. There can be no errors in inventory or wrong parcels being sent out, and very basic hygiene and checklist of things which gets overlooked if the inventory is not really standardized. And it is very easy to overlook few pointers, and then your operations in a particular throughput can fall apart. So it is the service levels which are commanded by platforms like say Amazon or Flipkart and Myntra. And again, even if you have your own direct to consumer website, you have to meet those SLAs, because you cannot be left behind when the other platforms are offering fairly fast shipping services. So that's going to define the standardization. So the physical asset is one important piece of it, and the other aspect of it is the technology infrastructure altogether. It is again a very important asset. So in an e-commerce context, to meet the SLAs, there is one technology asset which is a very sophisticated prediction engine. So before you choose a warehouse, you need to make the decision that in your brand's context, which location would make most sense for you. So you need to have that analytics in place so that you can choose right distribution point in unique context of your supply chain, your order density. Second is making decision how much inventory to keep in which location. Again, that's a very important decision which a technology platform has to make before you even ship your inventory to these different warehouses, and the physical operation kicks in. And this is where the differentiation comes in. So I
Harsh, if
think,
I may just pause you here,
yeah,
you are giving a different perspective. You are saying we will not create the box first, we will create the SLAs first, or anyone looks at SLAs, and may not be only e-commerce, might be across all the industries, whether it is FMCG, whether it is food, whether it is consumer durables, whether it is retail and apparel. Everybody are a victim of today's speed. Everybody wants faster turnaround. So
yeah.
you are trying to give a point that the service levels will determine the box standardization and the infrastructure creation. Is that what you're trying to tell?
Yeah, I think service levels will define that, because if you are a brand which has a largely say South India brand recall and presence, you don't need probably multiple warehouses everywhere. Just a single warehouse in say Chennai or Bangalore serves your brand's context. So then in that geography, then you'll have to plan out, is it one node or two node distribution that would make more sense, and then you go about building a supply chain. But if you are a pan India demand, and you have say 60 percentage coming from south and 40 percentage say distributed in west, east, and certain packets and all, your supply chain would look very different, and you need a platform to make that decision. So box comes in the second step, and then you identify those locations and then go about validating those inventory, where I think what Adjustify is also doing, from what I understand, standardization of those inventory and curation and helping in that warehousing procurement process adds a lot of value. I think then the box comes in and you require a very high quality infrastructure. And I think what Mr. R.K. Narayan was also mentioning was the current maturity is so right now we are fairly early in the game, and the markets globally are maturing. So there is a lot of room for us to catch up, which facilitates requirement a lot of assets to be built in, physical assets and also from a technology asset. So one of the numbers that I have right now is that from a e-commerce per capita, currently in India, I think it's about one parcel per capita. For China, that number is 70. In Europe, that is in mid 20s. So just if we were to say reach from 1 to 10 in few years from now, that requires very heavy investments, a lot of assets to be created. Also the tech front, which does not exist, the space that we are filling in right now, and also from a physical asset perspective, where a demand gets generated. Just tech alone cannot do anything if there is no asset out there which is standardized and can meet those SLAs. So it's like both of them coexisting, and it is not really a us versus them proposition here.
Sure. Thanks, sir. So you have put up one main point, which is service level will determine standardization. We are yet to answer the infrastructure part, which I believe Mr. Narayan should. Kamal, I have a question.
Yeah.
Historically, it was always per square feet.
Yeah.
The market, at least what we see, is that it's Q. Am I able to use the volume available in a warehouse? If you now talk to the modern supply chain practitioners, driven by the change across and the impact of global brands coming in. How much are we going to use Cube is going to be the determinant for a successful warehousing player, whether they're on the rental side, whether they're on the execution side, or a property developer. Because the model has gone variable, what's your take on that, and how does that help you to standardize then? Because when your billing to a client is going to be variable, how do you standardize your warehousing, A, on the supply side, and B, can you really do it, or is it just a wish? So there are multiple points here. Over to you.
Okay, so actually the problem which we were trying to address was this only when we started the company, that in Indian ecosystem, everyone talks in per square feet basis. And if you see US market, most of the companies talk in per pallet position basis or the cubic feet which is needed or volumetric weight which is there. Indian market has started maturing. Now you can find like at least 0.5 to 1% people have started using per pallet position costing methods. And even e-commerce is booming, so people have started on costing on basis of handling of per order. And the reason this change is happening is just because of e-commerce push. But majority part is we need to educate both the stakeholders who are involved in this value chain. There are on one side builders or developers. Their intent is to get maximum rentals or maximum yield which is possible. Then we have customers. Their intent is not paying a rental. Their intent is to fulfill the need of their end customer. So they should be able to run their operations in the perfect way. They would look at that there is ample parking space, vehicle turnaround, floor strength is there. They would be able to reduce cost structure or incorporate modern automation things inside the warehouse. So we need to first of all educate the ecosystem about what exactly the customers are requiring. And we also need to educate the real estate part of the ecosystem that customer looks at the number of palletizable positions which can be built inside the warehouse, not the total area or the built up area which is there. So that standard level need to be there, and it should be a parametric or logical driven. So as I told you, like we had 200 odd parameters which used to help in exactly deducing the pricing. And this pricing point can be converted in per cubic square feet also, per cubic square feet also. So yes, this market have started maturing. The growth of D2C brands have seen this shift to optimize this cost structure. Like they don't have that much volume today. So they are comfortable in paying on per, as like they want to get into a model where they can pay for the space which they are utilizing. And it makes more sense for them to pay in terms of volumetric weight. So eventually, as these D2C brands keep on growing, better quality infrastructure is again have started coming up, and that growth rate would also keep on matching the pace which is there. So I guess industry would totally move towards per cubic feet rates and on per pallet square feet, per pallet rates. Eventually, when these D2C brands would end up growing like to a level of P&G or ITC or Amazon, their mother warehousing or larger distribution centers would still work in per square feet rate only. That's the method of cost optimization. Eventually, end goal of any brand that they are able to predict about their demand. They are able to give an assurance that we would be sticking with you for next 25 years. That would help them eventually reduce the cost structure.
Sure.
So in the current ecosystem of D2C brands, people are moving towards these new methods of rating.
Thanks, Kamal. So you saying that people are moving to variable model, people are using volume rather than area, and at the same time, you brought in a point that people are looking for long term. So in a way, it's contradictory that you are looking for long term but a variable model. In such a scenario, Mr. Narayan, if we have to create warehousing, how do we bring in standardization in the infrastructure side? So we covered on the demand side, both Kamal and Harsh spoke more on demand, more on e-commerce, more on variable models. But the moot point remains, at least everyone out there typically go out to see what's best in NCR or Bombay, Bhiwandi, where do I find a modern warehouse? The word standardization is loosely used. But here the topic says, do we bring in standardization on the infrastructure side? So what's your take? This is the final question before we summarize. What's your take on that, Mr. Narayan, in terms of the infrastructure standardization to service all these characteristics?
No, I think there is a lot of standardized already there, at least what you see in terms of the recent developments over the last 2, 3, 4 years. Pretty much, you can say in line with what we see in the other Asian markets, at least, in a similar kind. See, standardization comes on account of one, institutional players coming in gradually, so which has been in a significant way over the last few years. And second, also it is also client driven. So, and I will take example of office parks. Maybe in 2005 or 6, a lot of offices, the Nariman Point style offices, which is what, or the New Delhi Connaught Place, in and around Connaught Place, all the offices that you see, that was of one type. But then what you see in Cyber City now, or what you see in Manita Tech Park, or in Bandakulla complex, are very different, because they're also driven. One, it's all in evolving phase, right? Indian market is evolving, continues to evolve. In certain segment, it has significantly evolved, and in certain segment, it is still evolving. I'm just talking about from a real estate perspective. So when market clients come, at least in the starting stage, then they drive as to what they need. They define the requirement. And the developers, especially the developers who are long-term players, they are too happy to oblige, because they are also learning in that respect, and they also want to create world-class infrastructure. So I'm pretty sure in the office side today, and some of the shopping malls also, you would appreciate that we are seeing some of the developments. There are many developments in the country which you can call them as world-class. Similarly, in warehousing also, over the last few years, they've started, they are happening. So many parks you see. Yes, broadly as a percentage across the country, you will see them varying percentages. Just to give you a few data point, if you look at all the grade A, all the warehouses in, say, Pune or in Chennai versus what you see in Mumbai or NCR, Mumbai and NCR by total volume of square foot is far, far bigger than those other markets. But when you were to talk about the division between standard or less than standard, let me call it them as grade A or grade B, the grade A percentage of the total volume in Pune and Chennai is higher, right? Chakan, you will find many more modern warehouses. Similarly in the Chennai also, versus what you see in Mumbai is still coming. Mumbai's percentage of grade A warehouse, as per a recent research report, that's just about 18-20%. Okay, India, the grade A warehouse is, and I'm talking of the 8 cities again, is just about 25 to 30%, whereas the grade B is is larger. So on an India basis, grade B is larger. Different cities have different varying percentages. Pune would have a larger percentage of grade A versus grade B. So standardization is happening. I think it's the same. Global standards have been set up. There are FM2 standards. There are AIC, MBM, American standards that is followed besides the NBCs and the IS. And mind you, the tenants are very involved. Those who want build to suits, the Amazons of the world, or the Flipkart, or the Decathlon, or so many others, they're all very much involved during the early stage, and they would like to do more of build to suit, which means that they are involved right from the design stage till the handover stage. So standardization, I would say, still is there in a significant way. As a percentage, of course, that needs to increase, even significantly more. Second, we also look at as long-term, holders of asset. We're not in the game of building and selling, right? We are there as a holder of that asset. So therefore, we better build something that lasts for a longer period, 25, 30 years, number one. And number two, my life cycle cost is lower, right? Everything looks equal, for the first few years, and then the difference then starts, which means I may have built, or let's say I may have compromised on something and still be able to let it out. But then somewhere down the line, the operation cost will start, increasing. So we are looking at lowering the operation cost for ourselves, looking at lowering the operation cost for the tenant as well by, by efficient design, by providing in certain low energy utilization methods, be it inside lighting, be use of solar power, or recycling of the water and all those things. They're not so much high tech. We don't have AHUs in the warehousing typically, but otherwise the other energy cost because of their automation is quite high. So try to lower their cost, operating cost, and our park operating cost also. So improvement of both the physical asset as well as bringing in standardization in the physical assets on the service aspects. We also put in SLAs for our operating teams on the sites and on all the service providers. It's a 24/7 kind of a service. On a related point, which is about clients looking at cubic feet as opposed to square feet, yes, that is correct. But it doesn't necessarily apply to all of them because not everybody doesn't use racking. Everybody does not have to use your automation system because it's basically based on what is the inbound and outbound, how frequently these are happening. E-commerce, yes, very quick in and out. Express logistics, even quicker in and out. Express logistics, some of them, they don't even need storage. It just comes and the same truck goes to the other side and then it just does the distribution, right? You got both sides talking. So different players, different requirement, but yes, by and large, the cubic feet requirement or optimization is there. Whether the market will turn to putting up rent in a cubic feet perspective, I don't think so, because again, different clients, different requirement. They may calculate their occupancy cost on cubic feet basis, but for the developer, it will always remain as a square footage. Because we are providing the same 13 meters high, 12.5 meters high to whatever. How much they use is up to them, right? Some of them may use 6 levels, 7 levels of stacking, but they may not use 100% of the area for that purpose because different goods require different kind of handling. So it all varies.
That's great, Mr. Naran. Thanks a lot. That was wonderful. We had a wonderful debate between the new age companies to somebody who's creating the asset class. Thank you, Mr. Naran. Thank you, Mr. Harsh. Thank you, Kamal. I'll just summarize the takeaways for everyone. Thanks, ladies and gentlemen, who are hearing us out. Thanks to IMI for having us. So, the most important is that this piece, that is a warehousing business, is going to remain, it's going to grow. So stay invested. Everybody can coexist. There are investors, there are startups, there are conventional players, and there are developers and landowners. Most importantly, client and consumer are going to drive the standardization is what the takeaway. The standards for building infrastructure are there and it's improving due to the advent of primarily e-com players and large apparel players. It's a debate. We don't know who's going to lose or win. We want everyone to win, the entire ecosystem to benefit. I mean, it's a huge market opportunity as far as what we call is a fulfillment center to fulfill a consumer's dream of getting the right product, right time, right place at a right cost. Warehousing infrastructure modernization and standardization will keep on delivering value, and we always have chance to improve. So with this, I thank the participants, I thank the panel, I thank IMI and the audience for being with us. Thank you very much. Any questions? We all are glad to answer those. Thank you. Do we have any questions?
No, sir, we don't have any questions and we are all.
Sure. So thanks a lot, everybody. Thank you, Harsh, Kamal, and Mr. Naran. Pleasure connecting with you. And I hope the audience got a good insight on this topic. Thank you very much. Bye.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Raj.
Thank you.